Good afternoon. I'm really happy to be here. I have a question for you. Do you choose to do the right thing, even if it's hard? Even if no one's watching? Many years ago, before I was in communications, I was a journalist and I was interviewing a pretty famous star. He and I got along really well. I was the last interview of the day, and he and I just hung out and started talking afterwards. He was in Toronto promoting his new movie, and I think he had done back-to-back interviews for days with journalists about his movie. I think he was a little homesick. I think he wanted to talk to someone about something other than the movie he had just spent the last 48 hours talking about. And so we sat there and we chatted. And then he confided in me about an issue he was having in his personal life. This is a pretty big thing. He hadn't told anyone, not his publicist, not his managers, not even his friends. I think he really needed just to talk to someone and to get it off his chest. Now, I'm not sure why he confessed to a journalist, but I think perhaps I happened to be in the room when he hit his breaking point, or maybe it's because we had a connection, and he trusted me. But while we sat there and talked about it, I started thinking about what it could mean for my career if I broke this story. The tabloids would have paid big money for it. It would have really put my name on the map, and it would have been good for my bank account. It's kind of like a little devil and an angel showed up on my shoulders, and they were fighting. And you know, as I sat and talked to him, we talked about how sometimes good people can do bad things, and it doesn't make them bad people. It means they made a mistake. And as I sat there, I thought about it, and I thought, you know, I don't think I want to profit from this guy's pain and struggle. It's not who I want to be. It's not the right thing to do. I think doing the right thing has been a theme within my life. When I was about 10 years old, a client of my father stopped by our house. His name was Shep. He drove a really nice car. He dressed well. He had traveled all over the world. It was clear that he was a success. And it was clear that he and my dad had a great bond. At one point, it was me and Shep in the room. And he turned to me and he said, you know, your dad's the best person I know. He will always do the right thing, even when it's difficult. And then he said, you know, if you only take one piece of advice in your life, you should take this one. Do the right thing. You'll never regret it. I've looked back on that conversation a lot in my life, and I think it influenced who I am, how I view the world, and I think what I ultimately chose to do for a living. I left the world of journalism a long time ago, and now I'm a strategic communications professional. I have a small agency that I co-own, and we work with clients on many things, often on issues in crisis. And you know, it's one of those things, when you talk to people that are under pressure, you can really see who does the right thing and who doesn't. You know, I think a lot of people, everyone from CEOs to your grandmother, who might be a CEO for all I know, they want to do the right thing. You know, they want to be the person that does the right thing. They want to be seen as good people. And we as consumers want to work with companies that do the right thing. That's where we'll spend our money. And we back that up with our wallets and our actions and our social media influence. If there's a company out there that's not doing the right thing, we take our voice to social media. And sometimes you can find other people, sometimes thousands of other people who feel the same way. That's a lot of leverage. Recently, we've seen some pretty big icons fall, Jian Ghomeshi being one of them. And the reason we were so upset with people is because it turned out they weren't who they told us they were. They lied to us. I don't think there's anybody in Canada that doesn't know about the dramatic and sensational unraveling of Ghomeshi's career. When the allegations first came out, a lot of people defended him. Now nobody's defending him, except his lawyers. And really, from the time the story broke to the time Ghomeshi's multi-million-dollar personal professional brand went into the toilet wasn't very long. And he really damaged CBC on the way out. You know, I'm not going to get into Ghomeshi's charges. We'll let the courts deal with that. But there have been some things that have come out that have really shown what was going on. You know, there were whispers and rumors about him for many years. And a lot of the people in the media and entertainment industries knew, and I quote, "There's something wrong with Gian." It's also come out that maybe some senior CBC staffers knew a little bit more than they let on. A young producer had submitted a complaint about him, an official complaint, and she was basically told to suck it up. She'd better learn how to work with him. You know, I think when you look at that, the people that saw her complaint were also in positions of power. And one of their responsibilities was to make sure that everyone there worked in a safe environment. It's clear that at some point, more than Gian didn't do the right thing. You know, Edmund Burke has a quote, "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." I'd like to update that. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I saw a 10-year-old boy recently who took that challenge on. My little niece and nephew were visiting me, and they were playing with some neighborhood kids. And I heard a bit of an altercation starting, so I started to listen. It was between a much older boy, a bigger kid, and a much younger, smaller kid. And all of a sudden, I heard my then 10-year-old nephew, Dax, say, "This isn't right, you can't do this, it has to stop." I looked over and Dax had positioned himself, facing the bigger kid and protecting the younger one. Thankfully, that was enough to chase the bully off. And afterwards, talking with his mom about this, I realized here's a young man who, even when he's afraid, tries really hard to do the right thing. And then I thought, if a 10-year-old can do it, shouldn't us grown-ups be able to do it a little better? You know, I think it's really important that you do the right thing for the little things. You know that stuff, like actually recycling, giving your seat up on the bus to an elderly person, picking up after your dog when you walk them in the morning? Because I think if you're not having that as a regular habit in your life, when the big stuff hits, you're going to be in trouble. It really needs to be, for your professional and personal life, your default position. You know, I got to tell you, it's a slippery slope. Maybe one day it's sunny out in Vancouver, the first sunny day in spring, and you call in sick to work, but you're not sick. You want to go out and sit on a patio and drink margaritas with your friends in the sun. Or you tell your family that you can't make a family reunion, but really you're going to stay home and binge watch the new series of House of Cards. You know, you have to be very careful when you do that, because sometimes, especially in the world of social media, people are watching. And in this world of social media, I think it's really important that you think that perhaps it might be a bit of a problem that ends up with 1 million views online. Des Hay, who was the CEO of Centerplate, was somebody who saw that happen to him. He was in an elevator with a small dog, and something happened and he took his temper out on that dog. He kicked the dog several times. He yanked it up by its leash, except somebody was watching. There was a video in that elevator. There was a video camera, a security camera, and somebody released it to the media. Well, it just went wild on social media. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of animal lovers demanded that he be fired. The company tried to fix it. They said they would donate money to animal shelters. They said they'd do a foundation, but that wasn't enough. The people out there said that they were going to boycott any concession stand that dealt with Centerplate. I think the mistake he made was not getting out and acting like a human being, because all he did was talk to the media through his lawyers. But you know what? In the end, board of directors did the right thing. He's now the former CEO of a billion-dollar company. You know, in my work in crisis and issues, you have to work with clients who are willing to acknowledge what they did, what they're going to do to make it right, and what they're going to put in place so it never happens again. Those are good clients, and you can help them. They've made a mistake and they want to make it right. You can rebuild trust, and you can rebuild their reputation that way. The clients that come to you and they want you to spin it, or fix it, or make it go away, are the ones that are a problem. And I have to say, when I'm tempted by those clients, because usually the bad clients have a bucket load of money to throw at it, that's when the angel and the devil show up again. I'm pretty fortunate that the angel normally wins. And you know, that's when my mind goes back to Shep. And I start to think, the ghost of Shep would haunt me if I took on this client. But you know, when you hear that voice in your head, the one that says, it's okay, no one will ever know, that's a bad voice. And usually for me, they throw in, and you know that house in Tuscany that you saw on International House Hunters? You could buy it. And you really can't listen to that voice. That's when you have to take a step back and ground yourself and realize your integrity is at risk. I've heard that voice a lot in my career. And the few times that I've actually listened to it, hasn't been good. You know, I think it's really important that you realize that small choices have big results. History shows us that a series of small choices of not doing the right thing can turn into big disasters. I was reading online about the 2010 Gulf spill. This was one of the biggest oil spills in history, and it devastated the Gulf Coast. 11 people died. It decimated the environment there. And all of the people that made a living on that coast are still coming out of the financial hardship it caused. You know, the thing is, it wasn't complicated technology or leading edge innovation. These were little things that I would expect are typical maintenance on an oil rig. It was things like pressure valves not working, a report that was misinterpreted, a leak that wasn't seen soon enough, and a dead battery. These are catastrophic results from everyday things. And if you look at it, this wasn't something that was unavoidable. You know, what about the person that didn't have time that day to check the battery of the gas alarm? They never thought that this would turn into this. It was a small decision to maybe cut corners. Maybe they were on too much of a deadline. Maybe they just didn't have time. But look at what all these came together to cause. A tragedy close to home are the missing and murdered women. I worked with the Missing Women Commission of Inquiry as their Director of Communications and in editing the 1,400-page report. The report that was released 2 years ago examined how the Picton police investigation went. And it highlighted how many people in positions of power didn't do the right thing. You know, there are many really good people on that investigation, and they worked really hard to keep the women that were in the downtown east side safe, and there were others that were in positions of power that cut corners, that didn't do their jobs, that their ego or their bias influenced what they did. That means Picton was able to hunt in the downtown east side for a lot longer than he should have been. When they finally caught him, 33 remains. The DNA of 33 women were found on that farm. That's a tragedy that is beyond comprehension. You know, I think it's really important that you think about all of these things, because the fact is, doing the right thing brings you many benefits. But I really want you to think, when you're making that choice, when you think, no one will ever know, it really won't matter, it's so small, it does matter. You know, my dad and Shep had a business relationship that went on for years. They partnered on projects worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a handshake, because each of them knew the other would do the right thing. So I want you to go home tonight and ask yourself, is that who I am? Do I do the right thing? And the next time you have that choice, if you hear that voice, even if they offer you a house in Tuscany, don't listen to them. You know what? If you go home and decide you're going to do the right thing for the small things, I promise you, like Shep promised me, you'll never regret it. Thank you.